A new report from Punchbowl News says that Amazon is looking to avoid the blame for raising prices as a result of President Trump's new tariff. This is a hostile and political act by Amazon. The president is clearly angry. White House Press Secretary Caroline Leavitt said she had spoken to him about it this morning. In early 2025, Amazon ignited a political firestorm by allegedly planning to show consumers just how much Trump's new tariffs were inflating prices. A bold Amazon proposal to display the true cost of tariffs on product listings, including 145% on Chinese imports and 10% on most other goods, quickly escalated into a political powder keg. When Punchbowl News leaked the plan in April 2025, the move drew immediate fire from the White House. President Trump personally called Jeff Bezos, and Press Secretary Caroline Leavitt denounced the transparency effort as a hostile political act. Amazon rushed to retract the idea, but the spark had already ignited a broader blaze. This moment wasn't just about price tags. It became a flashpoint for power struggles, trade wars, and the shifting architecture of global commerce. What followed wasn't a press release, it was silence. In Seattle, elevators once running late war rooms slowed to a halt. Strategy meetings vanished from calendars. No sessions were scheduled beyond June. Amazon's headquarters, the nerve center of global e-commerce, was going dark. Quietly, the company activated Project Silver Compass, a secret initiative to relocate its entire global command structure beyond US borders. The reason was simple but seismic. Tariffs now threatened over $13 billion in profits over just 36 months. And the death blow came when the de minimis rule, a policy allowing duty-free entry for low-value imports, was revoked. That rule had been the backbone of Amazon's marketplace. Without it, global supply chains fractured, costs soared, competitors abroad gained the edge. Amazon wasn't just cornered by tariffs, it was being forced out of its own home field. Inside Amazon, the response was swift and surgical. Project Silver Compass moved into its next phase, finding a new global home. Former Chief of Global Logistics, now tasked with redrawing the future of Amazon from scratch. The shortlist was clear. Singapore, Ireland, Canada, and the United Arab Emirates, each offering a unique blend of stability, connectivity, and strategic value. Singapore promised speed and precision. Ireland, a veteran of corporate relocation, offered minimal regulatory friction. Canada had cultural alignment and trade flexibility, but it was the UAE that emerged as the front-runner. The Emiratis came prepared. Their offer, a 10-year tax exemption, a custom-built logistics district in Dubai, a sovereign data treaty, and relocation support for up to 40,000 employees and their families. Secret negotiations began. While American policymakers were still arguing over the definition of reciprocal, Amazon was drafting escape routes. As talks intensified behind closed doors, the temperature in Washington rose. This wasn't just a company moving, it was a quiet referendum on US economic policy. And Amazon, once the crown jewel of American innovation, was preparing to crown another nation. As negotiations with foreign governments progressed, tensions in Washington escalated. Reports surfaced that Amazon had internally tested a model to display tariff-related costs directly on product pages, aiming to show consumers how recent trade policies were affecting final prices. The response from the White House was immediate. Press Secretary Caroline Leavitt criticized the idea as politically motivated, while some members of Congress raised the prospect of antitrust scrutiny. According to sources, President Trump personally called Jeff Bezos, voicing concern over the company's direction. Then, on May 6, 2025, Amazon confirmed it would relocate its global headquarters outside the United States. This move was not limited to a secondary campus or partial reorganization. It involved the full transfer of corporate operations, including logistics, finance, and executive leadership. The decision marked a significant shift in how multinational firms respond to evolving trade environments and policy uncertainty. For Amazon, it reflected an effort to maintain global competitiveness amid rising costs. For policymakers, it underscored the broader challenge of balancing national economic strategy with the realities of a globally integrated marketplace. The announcement sent immediate shockwaves through Seattle. Amazon stock initially dropped by 5%, reflecting market uncertainty, but quickly rebounded as investors began factoring in the potential cost savings from lower taxes and tariff-free operations abroad. On the ground, however, the consequences were far more severe. Seattle's housing market, once inflated by the tech boom, began to slide. Small businesses that had depended on Amazon's workforce for foot traffic and income saw a rapid decline in revenue. The city's tax base began to erode, threatening funding for public services and infrastructure projects. Thousands of Amazon employees were suddenly faced with life-altering decisions: relocate to a new country under expedited terms, seek employment elsewhere, or wait for further clarification amid uncertainty. City officials caught off guard scrambled to respond, exploring emergency incentives, job transition programs, and alternative partnerships to fill the economic vacuum. But the pace of Amazon's withdrawal was decisive. For Seattle, long considered a model of tech-driven urban growth, the departure marked a turning point. It was a stark reminder of the risks tied to economic overdependence on a single corporate anchor. While Seattle grappled with economic fallout, Amazon accelerated its transition abroad. In the Gulf, new infrastructure was rapidly deployed. The company's cloud architecture was duplicated in Abu Dhabi, ensuring operational continuity under sovereign data protocols. Fulfillment centers in Bahrain and Oman were outfitted with automated systems and solar power arrays, reflecting both technological advancement and a pivot towards sustainable logistics. Amazon's engineers underwent specialized training in Islamic finance, Gulf regulatory compliance, and data localization laws, adapting the company's operations to the legal and cultural context of its new host region. Simultaneously, Amazon initiated a complete overhaul of its global supply chain. U.S. ports, once central to its distribution network, were de-emphasized in favor of more agile hubs across Asia, the Middle East, and Europe. New routes were drawn and partnerships renegotiated. Emerging technologies, blockchain for traceability, AI for demand forecasting, and robotics for warehousing were integrated into this updated logistics framework. The shift wasn't just geographic, it was strategic. Amazon was no longer merely exporting goods. It was rebuilding a supply ecosystem designed to withstand political volatility and operate beyond traditional borders. Amazon's relocation did more than shift the center of its own operations. It redefined the rules for global business. Within weeks, other major U.S. corporations began recalibrating their strategies. Apple quietly increased its lobbying efforts, seeking tariff exemptions on critical Chinese components. Tesla, already building a battery facility in Indonesia, submitted a formal application for preferential tax treatment to insulate itself from U.S.-imposed costs. Even Walmart, historically rooted in American logistics, began re-evaluating its global sourcing network, exploring diversified routes and foreign manufacturing partners. A signal had been sent to boardrooms around the world. Relocation was no longer theoretical, it was viable. The unspoken message: if Amazon could leave, so could anyone. Back in the US, the political response was swift and divided. Lawmakers demanded investigations. Consumer advocacy groups decried what they called a tax-fueled offshore escape, and labor unions accused Amazon of abandoning American workers. But underneath the outrage lay a deeper question, one that policy, politics, and protest all circled. What does it mean to be an American company in 2025? In a global economy defined more by supply chains than borders, and more by tariffs than treaties, Corporate identity itself was being renegotiated. The old assumptions no longer held. Amazon's departure was not an isolated incident. It was a symptom of something far deeper. What began as a strategy to impose reciprocal tariffs in the name of American industry ultimately triggered a corporate exodus. Instead of revitalizing domestic production, these policies drove one of the world's largest companies to rebuild its empire elsewhere. While Washington debated trade metrics, cities like Dubai, Dublin, and Singapore quietly positioned themselves as the new epicenters of global innovation. These hubs now host not only Amazon's next chapter, but potentially the future of multinational enterprise itself. And what is left behind? Not stronger factories, not booming exports, but vacant headquarters, shrinking tax bases, and a brain drain of elite talent. Amazon's move wasn't just a corporate decision, it was a realignment of the global economic order and possibly a warning shot for what lies ahead. So we ask you, was Amazon justified in leaving? Should US policy shift before others follow? Can America still lead in a world where capital is borderless? If these questions matter to you, subscribe for more. And don't miss our next report where Tesla, Apple, and Walmart may be heading.